Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. I'm going to start off today by showing you a sonatina. I haven't mentioned sonatinas, operas, concertos, and different types of music like that, but this is a sonatina. It's several pages long. I didn't photocopy the whole thing. My purpose in showing it to you is to show you the markings in it and what those markings read, because as you know, we read music, so those markings will be read, and they'll have a certain meaning. This was written for the B-flat clarinet, and it's woodwind and instrument and piano, woodwind instruments and piano, but this was for the B-flat clarinet. And of course, the B-flat clarinet is one of my major instruments. I played it for years. I love it. I want to mention a couple of interesting things about the clarinets. They are fairly difficult to play. And the reason they're difficult to play is you have to learn two sets of fingerings, one for the lower register and one for the higher register. In the recorders, the flutes, the saxophones, and other woodwind instruments, all you have to do is either press a register key in the back or an octave key in the back, or in the case of the recorder, you just half hole the hole in the back, the thumb hole in the back. That'll bounce up most notes to an octave. It doesn't do it for all notes, but it does it for quite a few notes. So that's the way you get an octave on a recorder. So, but with the clarinet, when you press the register key, you don't get an octave. You get an octave in 5 notes. So therefore, the fingerings, if you want like a low D to a high D, the fingering is completely different. So you have to learn 2 sets of fingerings. Also, it's difficult to get to the higher register. You do it by learning it over time, because when you first start learning the clarinet, you learn the lower notes first. They're the easier to get, and then it takes a few weeks, sometimes quite a few weeks, before you can actually get to a higher register note. And when you do, that's called crossing the break, and it's always a cause of celebration when a student can finally cross the break and start playing the higher notes, because it isn't that easy to do, and you have to have a certain amount of skill to do it. And I could explain more about it, but this isn't a class on clarinets. But at any rate, there are difficulties with the clarinets. This sonatina was written for B-flat clarinet, and most people who play clarinets do play B-flat clarinets. I have a clarinet in concert A, and the rest of my clarinets are B-flat, but they do have alto clarinets, and they have bass clarinets, just like they have altos and basses for saxophones and tenors and so forth, and recorders also. They even have bass and alto flutes. So there's a great range of instruments that you can get, and they all have their unique challenges. But this is in B-flat clarinet, and I played this a lot. I've done solos on this quite a bit. So let's start off. I just want to go over the markings. This is the whole solo part, and it's several pages long. I didn't photocopy all of it, but it's several pages long for the B-flat clarinet. And I want to point out allegro. This tells you how fast to go. And then it gives you allegro moderato, and so therefore it tells you how fast it's going to be. It identifies the fact that it is in B-flat, clarinet in B-flat. It's a sonatina, and you can see the ledger lines. The ledger lines go way down below the staff. Clarinets can play way below the staff. They can play above the staff too, but basically below. That would be the lower register of the clarinet. You'll notice there's a P, that's piano. You play it softly when you start out. You notice this A, that is a rehearsal marking. In fact, they didn't do it in numbers, they did it in letters instead. And so you go along and you play this F sharp, it's in C. You notice that the timing signature is C. That C stands for 4/4. It means the same thing. And so you play, and here's your rehearsal marking is B, and then you have some real tiny, tiny notes here. These are notes that another instrument or the piano is playing. It's called a cue. If you get notes that look like it's half size, it's not full size, they're very tiny, that means another instrument is playing it. But it's written in so that if that other instrument could not play it for some reason, then you could play the cue and you'd be playing the melody line of what that other instrument would have been playing if they were playing. So it's a case you can follow the melody line even though you're not playing it, another instrument is. And should the instrument fail that is being played and it doesn't work or something, you could play that cue. It's in the same key, it's in the right key. Now here again, piano, and this you see is a slur. You slur all those notes, rest mark, and this ledger line, the very, very tiny, very low. I mean, there's a lot of lines here. It's hard to look at it sideways. Here's another rehearsal marking. So supposing I'm rehearsing this and we're running into a trouble somewhere, a pianist or whoever's going to accompany me playing, and it does have a piano part with it, I'll show that to you later, could say, let's go back to rehearsal marking B, or let's go back to B. We both know exactly where that is because it's marked. So we're not saying, let's go 10 measures after the beginning and we're counting measures, you know, because you might not end up exactly in the same place. Here's a slur. This is like a phrase, but I would play it as a slur. That MF is moderately loud, medium loud. F stands for loud. You'll notice also that you start getting these little, looking like little carrots. These are very small. And it's louder here, and it gets softer here. And then you get into the real piano here. And here it's soft. You go soft here, and then you play it a little bit louder. There's more space at the end. Another slur. Here's your dotted half note, so you're going to say that's going to be 3 beats. And I can't read that very well, but I think it's to go faster. I can't see it from here. And then it says a tempo here. So whatever it is that you did, you're going to go back to the original tempo. And let's see, moderately loud here, a piano here, slurs here, phrase marks, and then you get into more rehearsal markings, and so you can see that that's marked all the way down. That's just the first page of it. I wish the printing was a little high, a little larger. It'd be easier for me to see it. If it's not, I don't have a thing in front of me. Okay, here's medium loud right here, and here's a slur. Here's your carrot. Soft here, a little bit louder. Louder here, a little bit softer. There's a lot of expression in this music, and it's all written in, so you don't have to worry about, am I going to play loud? Am I going to play soft? How fast am I going to take it? It's all written in. A libretto tells you how fast. Now, there's a key change here. If you notice, it's all been going along in the key of G, which is 1 sharp. When you get here, it changes. And what they did, they have two little narrow lines that show you that you're at the end of that key signature. This is a fermata. It's a hold. It looks like a slur with a dot underneath it. It's a hold. And then they have canceled the F sharp. They wrote a natural where the F sharp would be, and they added the B flat. So now you're in the key of F with B flat. And it's 3/4 time. Here it's 3/4 time, and you go play that, and then you get down to here with slurs, the fermata, and then another key change. You have 2 narrow lines, the fermata, you're at the end of that key change, and then that B flat gets canceled because they put a natural there, and then you put the F sharp back in, and you're back to that C, which is that 4/4 time again. All in here, you get a lot of information, the hold, the key change, and the timing change, all done symbolically, so there's no question as to what you're supposed to play. It's not an easy piece, but it's a beautiful piece. I always enjoyed playing it. Piano. and then you go along, and here was another cue right here, and that rest is right there. I want to mention that rest. You have a rest if you're playing, and that's a full rest. In other words, for 4 beats you don't play. But here's the cue of what some instrument is playing or a piano is playing as background music, and you know exactly where they are. You can follow that, and if for some reason they couldn't play it, then you would play that, and that would fill that in. And here you have triplets, 3 triplets, 3 notes, written as 8th notes with a little 3 on top of them. That's where your triplets are. Here's another full rest and cues where you don't play, but another instrument does, but you could play if you needed to. And so you notice the ledger lines, it's getting way below the staff. This is how a clarinet does it. More rest, more cue notes. And here you have that F, which is really loud. You start with that little kind of caret. I'm calling it a caret because I don't know exactly how to describe it. But 2 lines that are not parallel, they're at a point, and then it gets wider and wider between the lines. That means you get louder and louder. And here's your fortissimo. That F is a fortissimo. Another triplet, so that's 1 beat there, a slur, and then you're soft and you get a little louder. And this goes on all the way through the piece. Here is a dotted 8th and 16th note. That's 1 beat. Dotted 8ths are really 2 16ths. The 8th is 2 16ths. And then since it's dotted, there's a 3rd 16th, and they're all together. And then where does the other 16th go? Because you have 4 16ths to a beat. Well, it's usually added afterwards. Now, in this case, a dotted 8th and 16th. This is the other 16th, the end of it. 3 16ths here on this beat, and another 16th right here written out. That forms a full beat. I always like to take time and explain that because it may not be such an easy thing to understand, but it is 1 beat, trust me on that. And then you see your piano, you have your volume, it's soft here, and this is a longer delineation of having it louder. You take a long time to get to the loudest point, which is right here. So they are drawn in different sizes. Moderately loud, and double P, that's pianissimo, double pianissimo, very, very soft. Triplet right here. Here's your 3 beats. It's 1 beat, but 3 notes to the beat. And then you have another set of triplets right here. There's 3 sets of triplets. So 3, 6, 9 notes, but each one is 1 beat. So that's 1, 2, 3 beats. But that's 9 notes in those 3 beats. 3 beats to 3 notes to a beat. So you can understand that this is not the easiest music in the world. Another rehearsal marking, this is pianissimo, and then you have more triplets. It's a beautiful piece if I had a chance to play it. And here you see very, very low notes. Clarinets can do that. It's not hard for a clarinet to reach way down below. Those lines are all called ledger lines. Piano, and a gradual loudness, piano, and here you're louder and you get gradually softer. Then you have the double pianissimo, which is very soft in here. And then that double line would indicate that that song was over. Now, I haven't done the whole thing, but this is interesting because now I'm getting to the piano part. The top part here is the clarinet solo. It's exactly the same as what I showed you before, but now it shows the piano part. Here's the treble clef, here's the bass clef, and the pianos play both treble and bass clef. And that's the whole accompanying music to this solo. So you go through it. This is the whole thing done in the piano part. And I don't know if I want to go through all of it, but this is give you the idea. Solo part is treble clef, and it's smaller notes, but that is the same as what I showed you before. And then the piano with its treble and its bass. You're going to notice these little lines. It's kind of like a bracket. these two are played together, because it is a piano part, and you're playing both the, or whoever is playing both the treble clef and the bass clef. The bass clef would be played by the left hand on the piano. The treble clef would be played by the right hand, and it has all of the same tempos and markings for however loud and soft it goes. And then so if I would go to play this as a solo and I really wanted to do it, I could, as I was playing the solo, follow along with the piano part. Now normally you wouldn't do it, because for one thing, these notes are very small, harder to read unless you've memorized it, and you don't want to be distracted. Now, if you were playing with a person and they were playing this piano part, you would know just from practicing where you were with it, where they were with it, and you know that you would be together. So you wouldn't really have a need to do that. But the piano player may want to see exactly where you are, because they want to make sure that they're following you correctly. So there is a purpose for this. Plus, if you buy one of these books, you have both the piano and the clarinet part. You don't have to buy more than one. And so it goes on, and this is the end of it here. You have the end of the music for the clarinet, which is in treble clef. This is the bass. It gets complicated, and that line at the end shows that that's the end of the song. And this is the end of the song, actually, the thicker line right here. And this is, once again, the clarinet part, and this is the end of the song right here. There are more pages to it. I mean, there are more pages to it. I didn't photocopy the whole thing. It's several pages long. So you can imagine, if you're playing and you have to turn pages, it can be a problem. Especially, you know, a piano sometimes can do a bass part and take their right hand and just move over a page or something like that. What my twin sister does is make a lot of extra copies and tape them together. Sometimes she had a line of 16 to 30 pages all taped together. And when I was doing her page turning for her, if she was doing a solo, I would just at the appropriate time pull it and get one page ahead of her, and then pull it when she needed another page and do it that way. Because by the time you flip over pages, and sometimes there's repeats, and you have to go back to where you were before and play and then flip over the pages, it can be so confusing. This is the reason why most musicians, if they're going to do something really complicated, they're going to have page turners. And the person who's turning the pages follows the music. Usually, a page turner knows a lot about music. They are musicians themselves, because they've got to be able to read the music and know where the musician is, and then turn the page at the appropriate time. And if you miss it, well, then you really can get terribly messed up that way. So there are different ways of handling it. I usually more or less memorize the music. Sometimes I would photocopy music and shrink it down and tape it all together so I knew exactly where I was and I knew how to play it. But a lot of times I just memorize the music. Music memorization, you know, you hear it and you kind of know it and you just play it. So this was the back cover of this book. Now, the original book that this came from, I didn't bring the original book, and the reason is the fact that the music is like this big, and you have to flip the pages. It's like a newspaper, you know, not as big as a newspaper, but really quite large. And so therefore, it's hard to flip music. So what I did was go to a photocopier and just shrink it down. It does make the notes pretty small, and sometimes it's a little hard to follow. But in order to bring it in, just to explain it so you can see the way that music is marked up, and that's important to do that. Well, I was going to play something, and I don't have that much time left. And so I think I'll stop it here, because I don't want to get into something that I can't complete. So I'm showing you, as time goes on, the way that music is written, the way that it's marked up, the way that you read it. And by the time we get through, you'll have a pretty fair idea of what it means to read music. Not just to play it, but to read it. And also to show emotion through the music, to show expression through the music. It's all marked out. out in symbols. You just have to know what the symbols are. And I've gone over some of these symbols with you, but we need maybe to go over them every so often so you'll know. Fast, soft, loud, soft, different kinds of timing, how to count the timing, how to count the notes, how long is a note, how long is a half note. What if you want to jazz it up some? What if you want to make syncopation out of it? There are ways of writing that. And when you write that in, then you have songs that you can take it and you can give it to somebody and say, can you read this music? Because it'll have to be read in order to be played. So I'm going to close it here. We'll continue on more in terms of music reading next time. Please join me then.